Hello and welcome to RXNT. My name is Hector and I'll be your trainer for today. Today we're going to be doing the patient portal training. We always start by going to our website www.rxnt.com. Friendly reminder to be using the approved browsers, which are Chrome, Firefox, and the latest version of Microsoft Edge. Also, if you're using a tablet, make sure that it's at least 13.5 inches, otherwise your visibility might be compromised. When you go to rxnt.com, this is our main web page. In the upper right corner, we have client login. So this is where yourself and any additional staff users will be logging into the system. And right next to that, we have patient login for any patients using the patient portal. Today, I am going to log in as a staff user. And when we first log in, this is what we call the main product dashboard. We call it the product dashboard because you can see all 4 products. On the top, we have the electronic health records and the e-prescribing. Both buttons will take you to the same place. On the bottom right, we have the billing, and on the bottom left, we have the scheduling. Before I start opening products today, I do want to point out this upper utilities gear. Each product has a utilities gear in the upper right corner. The menu is different depending on where you are and also based on your level of authority. In today's training, we're going to be talking about 2 things located under our utilities in the product dashboard. One is going to be our company preferences, and we're actually going to come back to that in a couple of minutes. And the other is going to be intake form management, where you can create your own set of electronic intake forms, and they're exclusively designed to be used electronically. They're not intended to be printed out. To create a form, we're going to go to the upper right corner to the plus sign. And on the left, you have some pre-built components that you can drag from the left to the right, any components that you want. On the bottom left, you can also create your own custom component. This name your field holds up to 500 characters, so you can do questions, sentences, paragraph, disclosures. You can really be very, very creative with this section. I've personally created entire documents just using the custom component. And when we get to the patient portal, you're actually going to be able to see one of them. For now, let's say that we want to ask your patients if they have any COVID symptoms. Let's just imagine that this is a very long question. Now, for the component type, do you want this to be a text box, have a phone or address format, date picker, the little calendar for the patient to pick the date, number field, only numbers, no letters, single dropdown, multiple dropdown is the equivalent to select all that apply, or radio buttons. For this example, I'm going to use the little radio buttons, and I'm going to do yes for symptoms, add an option, no for symptoms, and add the component. You also have the ability of entering plain text in the document. So if you need to include maybe a message or a disclosure. Now for the component type, we need to select heading. Heading will allow you to just enter plain text in the document. The components on the right are going to be part of your form. You can still drag them over if you need to change the order. With the X, you can delete. Once you have all of the components, we have to name the form. So today, I am going to name this form Test 23 and Preview. On the top left corner, we have the title of the document. Anything that it's a free text area, the patients will be able to free text information. Social will give them a social format. Date of birth, the date picker, the little calendar for the patient to pick the date. Anything that is phone related will give them a phone format. And on the bottom left, we have the 2 custom components. The COVID question with the little radio buttons for the patient to select, and the plain text. Towards the bottom right, we have modify, same as edit, takes you back to continue working with the form. Save and save as a draft. I normally recommend to save as a draft until you had the chance to double check the form to make sure that you don't have any typos, that you have all the components and that they are in the right order, because after you save, you are not going to be able to edit the form. Today, I am going to go ahead and cancel this form. I don't want to leave that on my account. Under the form name, you're going to have the name of the form, who created the form, the date that the document was created, and under actions, you are going to have 2 or 3 icons, depending if the form has already been saved or if the form is still being drafted. If the form is still being drafted, you are going to have a 3rd icon, which looks like a pencil that will allow you to edit and continue working with the form. The icon in the middle looks like a piece of paper, and it will allow you to duplicate an old form, and you can continue working with the new one. And the last icon is a trash can to deactivate any forms, any old forms that you are not using. Next, we're going to be talking about consent forms. On the top left corner, we have the RXNT logo that works as a home button. And now we can start opening products. For today's training, I am actually going to be opening up both the scheduler and the EHR because both products do talk to the patient portal. And I am going to start with the electronic health records first. When you log into the electronic health records, this is what we call the provider's dashboard. On the top right corner, you have another utilities gear, and halfway down this menu, you have your patient forms. Your patient forms are the second type of electronic documents that you can create to send to your patients. These are more like consent forms. The patient can only read, acknowledge, and sign. Other than signing for this document, the patient cannot enter anything else in it. To create a form, we're going to go to the upper right corner to the plus sign, and the only 2 things that you need to do is type the title and the body. Now, the body is something that if you have the content on your computer, you can simply copy and paste in this section. If you want to preview the form, you can click on top of the name. If you have a logo uploaded to your account, the logo will be in the top left corner. Your information, the title, and the body. The system will automatically create a field on the bottom left for the patient to sign, and on the bottom right, the date that the document is signed. Towards the right, you have a little pencil to edit and a little trash can to delete. Both products have this orange button on the top right corner to add a new patient that is not in the system. Friendly reminder to always search before you add to avoid having duplicates. When you add a new patient into the system, you can do it in 2 ways. You have full patient demographics on the bottom, and you also have what we call a quick add on the top. A quick add is basically the minimum requirements that you need to be able to enter a patient in the system. And as part of this workflow, you can also send them the portal registration. So this is first name, last name, date of birth, email. Selecting this little box that says Activate PHR basically sends an email to the patient for the patient to register for the patient portal. And we are going to see that email in the next couple of minutes and quick add the patient in. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. If we go to the scheduler, we have the same orange button on the top right corner. The format does look a little bit different, but you have full demographics on the bottom, and you have the same quick add on the top. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. There is one other place in the scheduler where you are going to see that quick add, and that is when you click on the calendar to schedule an appointment. On the right, you can search for existing patients, and on the left, you can quick add a patient in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. All of those are exactly the same. Now, if the patient is already in the system and you didn't send the portal registration when you were adding the patient in, you can search for the patient on the top, go into the patient's demographics, and on the top right corner, you have this button that says Send Portal Registration. Pressing on this button is the exact equivalent to selecting that little box that says Activate PHR. Basically sends an email to the patient for them to register. When you send the portal registration to the patient, the system will generate a message that says portal registration sent and a timestamp of when you sent the portal registration. Now, if the patient already registered, the Send Portal Registration button will completely disappear, and the message will say, patient has registered successfully for the patient portal, and a timestamp of the last time that the patient logged in. Towards the left, you have this blue button that says Patient Forms, where you can select between your consent forms and your intake forms, select as many documents as you want, and press on the Send button. The system will generate a timestamp when you sent and a different timestamp after the patient signs. This option to send the patient portal documents is also available all the way on the bottom of the appointment screen. So you also have the ability of sending those documents as part of your workflow when you're scheduling an appointment for your patient. Now for this part of the training, I am going to go to the bottom question mark into the Help Center, and I am going to look up an article that goes over how to register for the patient portal. Now this article actually has a little video on the top if you ever need to make reference to it, or if you even want to share this with your patients. When you send the portal registration to the patient will get this first email that says, welcome to your patient portal. To get started, please authenticate your identity by clicking on the button below. Next, this window, it's going to come up for the patient to enter their email, last name, and date of birth. When the patient selects authenticate, the system is actually verifying the information that was entered by the patient with the information that you have on your side of the system. If the information matches, the patient will get the second email that says, thank you for confirming your identity. Here is your registration PIN for the patient portal. Now, as you can see, under the PIN, it does say that the PIN expires in 24 hours. If the PIN does expire, the patient has the ability of requesting a new PIN. No action is required from you. The system will automatically send the patient a new email with a new PIN. Next, the patient will enter their first name, last name, date of birth, and the PIN provided. Towards the right, additional fields will open up where the patient can create a username and a password. The last step of the registration process is for the patient to accept the terms and conditions of the patient portal. Type their name, the date, and accept. The system will automatically redirect the patient into the patient portal. Now for this part of the training, I am going to go ahead and log in as a patient. Now, one of the most common questions that I get when I'm training is, how does the patient know where they need to go to complete that action? And the answer to that question is, a lot of the things that you're looking at right now, not all of them, but most of them are hyperlinks. So if the patient clicks on them, it will automatically redirect the patient to where they need to go to complete that action. When the patient logs in, this is their dashboard, and their dashboard will basically give them a summary of everything going on in the patient portal. Now on the top, they have the main menu in blue, and this menu has specific tabs for those actions. On the top left, the patient has appointments, and here they can see their upcoming appointments, time and date, the type, location, physician, the status. They can also confirm pending appointments, and if they do, the status will change to patient confirmed. Now, if I return back to your side of the system, product dashboard, and we go to our utilities into our company preferences. In this section, you have the ability of turning on and off different functionalities within the system. An example of this could be option number 1, allow patients to schedule appointments through the patient portal. And as you can see, my company right now has that turned off. When this is off, the patients will only be able to request, not make an appointment. From here, the patient can type the reason for their visit, location, provider, appointment type, select the date, morning or afternoon, and send the request over. If the patient sends you a request on your side of the system in the scheduler, you are going to have this yellow and blue message on the top that says patient messages. This is actually telling you that you need to go to patient request to see what the request is. So here we can see that back in January the 16th, Pedro Test requested an appointment with Dr. Nazario at this location EHR training. The reason is neck pain, and Pedro is requesting an appointment on December the 8th in the morning. Now, as you can see, those are in blue because they are hyperlinks. If you click on them, it will take you to the calendar to check your availability and schedule that appointment. If you don't have anything available, with the pencil, you can send a message to the patient. Now, if I return back to my company preferences and I turn this on, and of course, I do need to log out for those changes to take effect. And I log back in. You can see that it's changed from request to schedule an appointment. And again, the patient can do it from their dashboard on the bottom right corner. They have scheduled an appointment and the calendar comes up. Or they can do it from the main menu under appointments. Now, as you can see, it doesn't look like a request window anymore. Now it actually looks like a calendar. From here, the patient can select the location, provider, appointment type, and search. The calendar will display in blue only available time slots. No other patient information will be displayed. No information in regards to the provider's availability will be displayed. Only available time slots based on the patient selections. From here, the patient can select the time slot and schedule their own appointments. Now, only on the day of, the patient will be able to check in for their appointment. As you can see, that option is not available for the upcoming appointments. So only on the day of, the patient will be able to check in for their appointment. As part of the check-in process, if the patient has any action required, such as consent forms that need to be signed or intake forms that need to be completed, those documents will automatically come up asking the patient to complete before their visit. Once the check-in process has been completed, If this is a telehealth, a blue hyperlink will open up to the right that says Launch Meeting, where the patient can click on it, join the virtual room, and wait for the provider to give them access. Now, something else to note, when the company preferences are turned on, the patient will also be able to reschedule and also cancel their appointments. There is one other thing under company preferences related to appointments, and that is this option on the bottom that says Enable Appointment Request. So basically, if you turn this one off and the first one off, both of them turned off, what this is going to do is that it's going to completely turn off that capability for the patient. So the patient will not be able to request, the patient will not be able to make their own appointments. So what's going to happen on the patient portal side is that when the patient clicks on schedule an appointment, a pop-up message is going to come up. Please contact the provider's office to schedule an appointment. Our next tab, it's our documents. And on the top, we have different tabs for the different types of documents. Towards the right, we have an intake form tab holding our intake forms. The patient will have an orange button to the right that says complete for any intake forms that the patient needs to complete. Now, this document is actually an example of a document that I created using, for the most part, the custom component, very, very little pre-built components I use on this form. On the top, we have the title, followed by some plain text, some fields for the patient to enter information, little radio buttons for the patient to select one option versus the other one. You can also create radio buttons if you need the patient to consent, possibly to the above information. Again, lots of text in this document, and all the way on the bottom, I also created a signature field if you need the patient to sign the intake form. Date of signature. Now, if this is a very long document and the patient doesn't have time to complete, they can save and finish later. If they complete the document, it will transfer to your side. And we are going to see that workflow in the next couple of minutes. The patient will also keep a copy of any intake forms that they complete. Next, they have a consent form tab holding their consent forms. Towards the right, a little signature icon required for any consent forms that the patient needs to sign. Now, this document that I am opening up is the same document that you saw on the EHR side. Once more, we have the logo on the top left corner, your information, the title, and the body. And as you can see, the system has created this field on the bottom left for the patient to sign. Select, I have read the consent form and agree to sign this document electronically. Type their name. The date that the document is signed will automatically be included, and sign the document. The same thing, document transfers to your side. The patient also keep a copy PDF version. I am going to skip health summary for one quick moment, and I am going to jump into patient documents. Under patient documents, the patient has the ability of uploading a document and sending it to you. To do that, they go to the upper right corner to the plus sign. On the left, they can select the doctor, the title. So let's say that they want to send you a copy of the driver's license. Description, choose from their computer, and they can upload up to 10 megabytes. Exactly the same thing after the patient signs or saves, that document will transfer to your side. They also keep a copy of any documents that the patient uploads and sends to you. Now, all three of those documents that the patient uploads, consent forms, and intake forms, all three of those are going to stop in the electronic health records in the provider's dashboard inside of documents for you to review and accept. Towards the right, you have a view icon to view the document before you accept the document. Once you have verified that this document has been properly signed, properly completed, you can accept individually on the right or select multiple on the left. Now, if for whatever reason the patient had the intention of maybe possibly sending a copy of the driver's license, but they accidentally choose the wrong file, and it's something that should not be in the patient's chart, you can select that document on the left and delete. If you delete that document, it will not transfer into the patient's chart. Now, any documents that you do accept, they will transfer into the patient's chart, and those documents will be stored inside of patient documents. The system will also break them down based on the type of documents that they are. As you can see, the system has created this folder called Electronic Patient Forms, only for the electronic documents, which are the intake forms and the consent forms only. The next column gives you the date that the document is signed, folder if you need to include a description, view icon towards the left, and the second column gives you the title of that document. Now, that third document that the patient uploads and sends to you, that is not an electronic document. Therefore, the system will assign this folder called Patient Portal Documents. If we make reference to this one right here that says 10/27/2021, and we go back to the patient portal, we can see the same document 10/27/2021. Now this one, as you can see, it has a title of driver's license, but this document was selected and deleted on your side. So under the status, the patient can see that this document was rejected, and under the comments, incorrect signature. The other one is the one that is still pending. Next, we have health summary. Here in this section, the patient has the ability of viewing their medical records, basically filtered by dates. So let's say that we want to view the medical records from May 2021 until December of 2021. This is going to generate as a document with some patient information on the top. And if we scroll a little bit down, the patient has a table of content. Now, if we look at this table of content, it looks like the navigation menu on the left side of the patient's chart. Now, keep in mind that the navigation menu is customizable per user by using this utilities gear. So the order on your side and the patient's side is going to be different. Now, if we make reference to the first three, vitals, medications, and problems, and we go back to the patient's chart, we have vitals, medications, and problems. That is where that information is coming from, the information that you have documented in the patient's chart. Now, on your side of the system, you may have 10 or 20 years of vitals, just as an example. But remember, the patient did filter by dates. So if the patient clicks on vitals, they can see based on what they filter by, May 2021 until December of 2021. Now, if we return back to the table of content, you can see that the patient cannot see your notes, N-O-T-E. Remember, this note section inside of the patient's chart, it's for internal use only. So the patient cannot see your internal notes. The patient also cannot see your encounter notes. The only thing on the table of content that says encounter, it's encounter diagnosis. Now, if you'll remember from the EHR training, all the encounter forms are different. If you are using an encounter form that has goals in it, the patient can see the goals inside of that encounter, only the goal section, not the full thing. If you are using an encounter form that has plan of treatment, the patient can see the plan of treatment section inside of the encounter, not the full thing. Next, we have labs. In the patient portal, the patient can see the results. On your side of the system, you have two tabs, results and orders. Again, the patient can see the results. The results can get here in two ways. One, if you are connected with an interface, or two, by manually entering the results and by going to the upper right corner to the plus sign. My account is not connected to an interface, so all 10 results that you can see right here were manually entered by me. On your side, you can click on the arrow and expand the results. The patient can do exactly the same thing. Click on the arrow, expand the results. Now, if you remember from the EHR training, when you manually enter a result in, by going to the upper right corner to the plus sign, you also have the ability of attaching a document. This first result on the top has a document attached to it. So if I open this up, we can see the dates, the value, the units, the range, the result. You can see that there's a document attached, and on your side of the system, you have a view icon to actually view the document. If we go to the patient portal, we go to the same result. The patient can see the dates, value, units, range, results. They can see that there's a document attached, but they don't have a view icon. So they can see the result. They cannot open the document up. Under billing summary, this is actually going to look a little bit different depending on your account setup. My account doesn't have billing. My account doesn't have statements, doesn't have PIA, doesn't have bill pay. At the very least, the patient can see manual payments taken on the scheduler. So that's what those are, just manual payments taken on the scheduler. Now, of course, if you do have billing with us and you are set up with statements, the patient can see their statements. If you have billing and you have PIA bill pay, the patient can also make payments online. Now, if you have a patient that is not using the patient portal, but they still want to be able to make a payment online, they can still come to our website, www.rxnt.com. On the top right corner, we have client login, patient login, and patient bill pay. So again, the patient can still make a payment online, even if they're not using the patient portal, of course, as long as you have billing and bill pay with us. The patients also have the ability of searching for coupons on medications. They will be in alphabetical order. And under more, they have history with the same 3 tabs that you have on your side of the system: past, family, and social history. They do have the ability of entering that information for you the same way that you do on your side by selecting the plus sign. If they do, next to the letters PFSH on your side, you are going to have this green triangle letting you know that the patient entered information in a section of the past, family, and social history. You are going to know in what section because this external source data to the right is going to be moving around, letting you know that the patient entered information. If I scroll down, you can see that this one under implantable devices, it's not moving. So that means that the patient didn't enter anything in this section. From here, you can select the external source data, external meaning coming from outside. So this on the top will be the information that was entered by the patient. And on the bottom, you have your active data. the information that you have on your side of the system. You can select the external data on the left, add to active. If you accept those changes, that information will transfer to your side. Right here on the bottom left, you can see that the latex is highlighted in red because it was already added to the active data, showing up on the bottom, and it was also accepted, so it's already on your side of the system. Towards the right, you have this column that says record source, so that way you know what information was entered by you and what information was entered by the patient. Now from here, this is a current allergy. You can select on the left. If this is current medications, you can also select on the left, add to current medications or to current allergies. That will push that information over to your navigation menu. So in the case of allergies, it's going to update your current allergies list. In the case of medications, it's going to update your current medications list. Next, the patient has access to Health Library. Basically, we'll redirect the patient to medlineplus.gov where they can get information on medications and health. That will be the equivalent to the little globe that gives you patient education on different areas of the EHR. If I go ahead and click on any of them, you can tell by the logo on the top that it's basically redirecting the patient to the same website, so they do have the ability of searching for that information on medications and health. They can manage relations, and they can message the provider. Now, this is a messaging system that will allow the patient to communicate with the provider. They have two folders: inbox, messages coming in; sent, messages going out. Now today, for you to be able to send a message to the patient, you have to be inside of the patient's chart, and on the top right corner, you have this little stethoscope, and this is how today you can send a message to the patient. Just type the message and send. For the patient to send you a message, they go to the upper right corner to the plus sign. They do have to acknowledge that if this is an emergency, they need to call 911. Select the doctor, type the message, and send. If the patient sends you a message on your side of the system in the electronic health records, you are going to have a red message on the top that says you have unread messages. This is actually telling you that you need to go to more, messages, and here you have a tab holding your patient messages. The same thing, you have a folder for your inbox and a folder for your outbox. Now the entire messaging system is actually in the process of being redesigned, and hopefully in the very near future, it's going to be eliminated from under more, and it's going to be relocated to the sidebar where today you have this orange chat icon to only chat with your staff, and in the near future, also chat with your patients. I've been told that you are just going to have a toggle on the top to toggle between your staff messages and your patient messages. Any messages that have not been read are going to be in bold like this one, and also have this orange dot under the person's initials. Activity log will show the patient every time they logged in, logged out, password failed. On the top right corner, once more, you have the logo, and these are the patient's initials, Pedro test. Now here the patient can sign out, but they can also edit their profile. So if they move, they can update their address. If they change their phone number, they can also update their phone number. Now, if the patient makes changes to their profile on your side of the system in the scheduler, under patient request, you can see what those changes are. So once more, on the 16th, Pedro updated his demographics, something to do with the address. Here we have the new information entered by the patient and the previous or current because I still haven't accepted those changes. The previous address or the current address is 1234 Main Street. The new one is 12346 Main Street. We can clearly see that we had a typo. We were just missing one number. From here, we can accept or decline. If we accept those changes, that information will update in the patient's demographics. Now, I'm actually going to go ahead and return back to product dashboard on the utilities, and I am going to return to intake form management. When you are building an intake form, on the left, you have pre-built components. All of the pre-built components, with the exception of the last two, primary insurance and secondary insurance, and the custom ones, of course, all of the ones on the top, they do talk to the patient's demographics. So what that means is that if you are using a pre-built component for a social, and again, this is just an example, and if the patient enters their social on a pre-built component next to the patient's name, you are going to have this orange triangle. And if I hover over it, you can see that it says, review changes to patients' demographics from intake forms. If you click on it, you can review what's current and what's new. You can pick and choose what information you want to keep and what information you want to accept. If you accept those changes, that information will update in the patient's demographics. Once more, towards the right, we have the sidebar, and on the top right corner, orange chat icon to only chat with your staff today, and in the near future, also with your patients. On the bottom, you have this orange question mark. If it ever has a little black dot, that means that we had an update in the system. So we're gonna keep you updated at all time. On the bottom, you can share your ideas with our development team, request additional training, and inside of the help center, as you saw me doing all of my trainings, this is where you can type and search for answers to questions. If you can't find the answer, you can chat support, and the chat is available during business hours. That basically concludes the patient portal training.